Hi, welcome back to the channel. This is stuff that I don't think many people tell you, really. People try and keep it as a bit of a secret, including the real thing that hiring managers care about. We're going to talk about recruiters, we're going to talk about CVs and resumes, and we're going to talk a little bit about personal branding, particularly online. Let's go. So the person that makes a decision whether you're going to get the job or not is the hiring manager. And you might think that the hiring manager is trying to find the best person for the job. This is not true. The most important thing the hiring manager cares about is risk. And let me tell you about the three types of risks that hiring managers are thinking about. There are typical risks that we all know and love, low risks that aren't actually real risks, but people think about them, and super scary real risks. So the typical risks that you'll be familiar with are things like, he's too good, he might be overqualified, could take the hiring manager's job. This is a genuine risk that they think about. You could be too jumpy. This means you've changed jobs quite a bit and you might not stick around. And you might not fit in. This is what the whole cultural fit thing is for. You've got to bear these risks in mind because the hiring manager is definitely thinking about them. They will also be thinking about these risks, that you might not be good enough, you're too old, too young, whatever. But all of these can be mitigated, so you can down level. Some people like people that are easier to control, and being too expensive, but that can always be negotiated. Now, the real risks, the real hiring manager risks, are the following. And we've got this guy back. He's back from the last video. He's now our hiring manager, and he is actually thinking about these risks. He's thinking, if I don't fill this position, I'll lose my headcount this year. This is what he's genuinely worried about, and he won't be able to hire again for a while, because he won't be able to grow his team, and his position might not be as good as it should be, because hiring managers want to grow their team. He's also thinking, if I don't hire this candidate, I'll miss out on them. The project might be at risk, right? He needs a specific skill set, and if he doesn't hire you that has a skill set, his project or his new team might not actually happen. And he might lose you to a competitor. And the worst one of all is, if I do hire this candidate, I might lose my job. This is the biggest risk that hiring managers think about, of developers, tech people, all over. This is all they really, really are worried about. So, understanding the risks that the hiring manager sees in the decision, you have to think about psychology. And the biggest advice I can give you is to make the biggest risk not hiring you. You do have to understand the bigger picture about the role that you're going into, particularly unique roles in small or medium-sized companies. No matter what level you're at, you also need to make sure that you are the least risky option for a hiring manager to choose. You don't actually have to be the most qualified. You have to be the least risky. But how do you navigate the risks in a new position? Well, my second topic is everyone's favourite, recruiters. Yeah, we love recruiters. Yes, we do. They are an extremely important part of you finding a job. So there are two types of recruiters you will encounter in this world. They are internal recruiters, who may or may not look like this. They are normally in large companies and they have their own sourcing teams and so on. And there's not much you can get out of these people because they can't really give you insider information. But the most important ones that I find are external recruiters, so smaller companies, and also for high-level roles, sort of headhunting sort of world, you will get external recruiters. And you might want to figure out what makes a good external recruiter. Well, good external recruiters will do the following. They will share the job description with you straight away, and they won't redact who the company is. Because, you could, if you knew who the company was, you could just go direct and apply yourself. But by sharing the company name up front, it creates a little bit of trust there. If they edit your resume, they must tell you. Sometimes recruiters like to add their own letterhead or whatever to your resume. The worst of them will obviously edit your resume, but if you do turn up to an interview and your resume or CV is not the one you issued the recruiter, you should be able to issue copies of your resume that you've brought yourself. So print them out and bring them with you. They also have relationships with hiring managers so that they understand the risks that I've just discussed, can help you navigate them and let you end up being the least risky option. So what about bad external recruiters? Now, I'm not saying this guy's bad, but he might be. The worst ones, just gather your details on LinkedIn and submit your details to a company portal. So how would you be able to suspect this is happening? Well, they will be asking for weird personal bits of information, like your date of birth or your address or so on, because they are literally taking your information and typing it in to the company portal where an internal recruiter will actually deal with you. If you get a sense of this, you need to back out and apply direct. They will also ask for references before a job offer is made. This is just a fishing expedition. They are trying to get more contacts for their CRM system or whatever. It's not cool. And if you catch them in a lie, you run away as fast as possible because they're not to be trusted. So external recruiters have their own risks that they're worried about. Primarily, this is their biggest risk that they worry about, that if you get into the job and make them look bad because you're not actually good at your job, they will lose the client. So you need to worry about the recruiter's view of your risks as well. But the most important thing to remember about external recruiters is that you are the product. They work for the company, their client, because they will charge their company anywhere between 20% to 35%. In Japan, it's crazy. It's like 35%, sometimes 40%, which is pretty bonkers. After you've passed your probation period, they will get that percentage of your first year salary. And it's the customer is their client and the client pays for it. They will also try to negotiate a higher salary for you, but not at the risk of losing the entire placement. Yeah? You have to understand this. If they try to get you an extra 10%, but at the risk of losing 100%, they won't try, okay? Bear that in mind. But before we get there, you need to have a CV or a resume, that they call it in the States. I call it a CV because I'm from the UK. Now, you might want your CV to look like this. Oh, look, it's Klein, our full stack hero from the last video. Look, he's got a very pretty CV there. You've got Luna Thompson. Who's this? Well, she's got a very pretty CV. Now, let me talk to you about these CVs. Don't make them like this, please. One reason is that they have a photograph on them and you're literally asking the hiring manager to discriminate based on your age or race or beautifulness or whatever. And also because it's multicolored and has columns. And I'll get to why that's not great in a second. So don't do this, okay? You want your resume to look like this. And the reason is your resume is essentially a searchable document, right? ATS systems, applicant tracking systems, are now all completely automated OCR systems that will scan your resume for keywords and essentially try to pigeonhole you somewhere. But if they can't read it because the colours are fancy or you've got everything in funny columns, your data just won't go through, all right? So don't bother. You need to make your resume look plain. And the format will be converted between PDF to Word or whatever, copy and pasted, and it needs to be as easy as possible for systems and humans to be able to do that. My next piece of advice is to be careful about the contents of your CV or resume. These are things I've actually seen in CVs because I've reviewed them in my career, hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah, if you write Git in capital letters, it's incorrect. You do it like this, yeah? It's not an acronym. If you write jQuery with a capital J, that's incorrect. It's a small j. Scrum, Agile, capitals, no, they're not acronyms. Scrum does not stand for something, so you write it like this, yeah? And you might think this is funny, but if you've actually used these technologies for a long period of time, you would have had this text in front of you every time you look at it, so you would know how to type it, okay? RESTful, yeah, this is not an acronym. It's actually written like this. REST is an acronym, so RESTful is like this. Do this, please, all right? I've actually seen CVs and resumes that have this. Now, if I see this at the top of a CV or a resume with crazy capitalization, weird spacing, random periods, full stops, mistakes everywhere, yeah? Guess where it goes? Yeah, it goes straight in the bin. Now, I'm not being funny, but my biggest piece of advice to you is if English is not your first language. Okay, that's okay actually for a lot of developer jobs. It's absolutely fine, even if the work is in English. But you need the self-awareness to get it proofread by a native English speaker. Please, I am begging you to get it proofread if English is not your native language and you're writing a CV in English. But it's not just your CV or resume that hiring managers judge you on, is it? No, these days everybody has a personal brand. They go and Google your name on the internet and they want to see what they find. Okay, so these are some ways that your personal brand can be a risk. It could be too shallow, actually. You could have nothing out there which is a little bit sus. 2 blog posts written in 2016 and a single GitHub tutorial project is probably actually worse than having no blog or no GitHub at all, sadly. People will judge. It's not just me. You could be fighting with people, arguing about politics on Twitter. Please don't if you're actually job hunting. Just make it all private if that's what you do. Could be inappropriate, again, spicy stuff, yeah, unless totally anonymous, which I'll get to. And you could be 100% focused on a single technology, which makes you look a little bit obsessive. And unless you're actually going to try and get a job at the vendor of the technology, then they might be worried that you actually do just want to work at Google or Microsoft or whatever, and not at their company. So hiring managers do think about this. And this goes back to the risks from the beginning of the video. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a very large personal brand, you've got 100,000 YouTube subscribers, 50,000 Twitter followers, whatever, you'll end up probably being limited to certain roles. And actually, you might be okay with this after building a personal brand. But the public-facing roles like developer relations and so on that you will be perfect for, as long as you don't trigger any of the inappropriateness flags on the previous page. Leadership roles, fine, as long as you're bland and toxically positive, like people on LinkedIn. But you might not be suited for boring developer jobs, sadly. You might have hopes and dreams of something else as well. And it actually creates extra risks for the hiring manager, which we're trying to reduce our level of risk, that you might be distracted and other colleagues might be jealous. And you'll be making money on the side, probably, with a large personal following. Side businesses and stuff might be seen as a distraction. Now, this might not be a deal breaker because you might be so good that the risks get balanced out, which is fine. So if the hiring manager does Google your name and sees your personal brand, as it were, online, it needs to be work safe for 99% of roles. And an example of a work safe personal brand would be something like this on Twitter. Oh, look, it's Klein full stack. He should not be on Twitter, should he? But he is, and it says, I'm a software developer in London. Thoughts my own. Super boring. That's okay. But I also took a random real profile off my Twitter, and it's like an anime thing, yeah? But it's anonymous, okay? So it doesn't matter. This person probably has 140 IQ and is too smart to use their real name. Where people get in trouble is where they do something in the middle. They use their real name, and it's spicy. Yeah? It makes a hiring manager really rub their beard a bit and think, is this person too risky for my team? And is this person too risky for my job? So if that was useful and you learned something, would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. You might even consider subscribing. If you actually subscribe and the numbers go up, then I will know that you want more tech job dev advice and this kind of content. Thanks for watching.